The galaxy had seen thousands of wars. Ancient empires had risen and fallen. Powerful fleets had burned entire star systems. Civilizations older than Earth had fought for centuries before finally disappearing into history. But on this day, something different was happening. In the center of the galaxy, inside the enormous chamber of the Galactic Council, hundreds of alien leaders had gathered for an emergency meeting. The room was massive, built to hold the representatives of the most powerful civilizations in the known universe. Floating platforms filled the chamber, each one holding ambassadors from different worlds. Some were tall and thin. Others were small and covered in armor-like skin. A few looked almost like living machines. At the center of the chamber floated a large hologram. It showed a small blue planet. Earth. Many of the aliens stared at it with curiosity. Some stared with annoyance. And a few stared with fear. Humans were a strange species. They had entered the galactic stage only 30 years ago. Compared to civilizations that had explored space for thousands of years, humanity was young. Very young. But they were growing faster than anyone expected. Human colonies were spreading across nearby systems. Their shipyards worked day and night. Their fleets were increasing in number every year. To some species, this was impressive. To others, it was dangerous. A tall silver-skinned alien stood up from his platform. He was Admiral Vyrek of the Karth Dominion, one of the most powerful military empires in the galaxy. His voice echoed through the council chamber. Humanity is expanding too quickly. The room grew quiet. They claim to seek peace, Vyrek continued, but their fleets continue to grow. Their weapons are primitive but powerful. And their soldiers fight with a level of aggression rarely seen in civilized space. Some ambassadors nodded. Others looked bored. One insect-like ambassador raised a claw and spoke with amusement. They are Deathworlders. Their home planet is chaotic. Storms, predators, earthquakes. Of course they are aggressive. Soft laughter spread across the chamber. Another alien added, their ships are ugly slabs of metal. No advanced energy shields. No elegant plasma weapons. More laughter. They still use railguns, someone said. Railguns, another voice mocked. The chamber filled with quiet amusement. But in one corner of the chamber, an old alien commander remained silent. Commander Ralthor of the Vishari Union had fought humans once before during a small border conflict years ago. He had seen their ships. He had seen their soldiers. And he knew something the others did not. Slowly, he stood up. I advise caution, Ralthor said calmly. Some ambassadors turned toward him with mild curiosity. The humans fight differently, he continued. They do not fear losses the way most species do. Their strategies are unpredictable. Their technology may look simple, but it is extremely effective. Admiral Vyrek waved a dismissive hand. You exaggerate. Ralthor shook his head slowly. No. I am trying to warn you. But the council had already made up its mind. For many of the powerful empires, humanity's rapid growth was unacceptable. If humans continued expanding, they might become a real threat one day. Better to stop them now. The Supreme Speaker of the Galactic Council slowly rose from his floating throne. The chamber became silent. The Council has reached a decision, he announced. The hologram of Earth rotated slowly in the center of the chamber. Humanity has ignored multiple warnings about military expansion. Some ambassadors nodded. Therefore, by vote of the Galactic Council. The speaker paused for a moment. The galaxy declares war on humanity. For a second, the chamber was silent. Then it exploded with noise. Many species cheered. Some celebrated. They believed the war would be short. The galaxy had thousands of fleets. Humanity had only a few. It would be a simple lesson. A quick war to remind a young species of its place. But far away, on Earth, inside the command center of the Terran Defense Fleet, a human admiral watched the council broadcast in silence. Admiral Daniel Hayes stood with his hands behind his back as the message ended. Around him, officers stared at the screen. One young officer spoke carefully. "Sir, the entire galaxy just declared war on us." The room was quiet. Hayes looked out the large window behind him. Outside, hundreds of human warships floated in orbit around Earth. Their metal hulls were simple. Their designs were not elegant. But every ship carried weapons built for one purpose. War. Hayes slowly turned back to his officers. His face was calm. "So," he said quietly. "The galaxy has made its choice." He pressed a single button on the command console. Across the solar system, alarms began to sound. Shipyards activated. Hidden bases powered up. Deep inside classified military stations, weapons humanity had never shown the galaxy began to wake. The admiral looked at his officers. "Prepare the fleets." For 30 years, humanity had tried to live peacefully among the stars. Now the galaxy had forced their hand. And very soon, the entire universe would learn one terrifying truth. Declaring war on humanity was the biggest mistake the galaxy had ever made. The galaxy expected an easy victory. Within hours after the declaration of war, the largest Alliance fleet in modern history began moving toward human space. Thousands of alien warships gathered near the border of the Sol system. It was called the First Suppression Fleet. Admiral Vyrek stood proudly on the bridge of his massive flagship. The enormous vessel floated in front of thousands of allied ships from different species. The fleet was beautiful in a terrifying way. Golden cruisers from the Helari Empire. Spiked warships from the Karth Dominion. Long glowing carriers from the Velan Republic. Their shields burned like small stars. Their plasma weapons could melt entire cities. Compared to them, human ships looked primitive. But the alien commanders believed numbers and technology would win the war quickly. Admiral Vyrek stared at the hologram of the Sol system. "Resistance will be minimal," he said calmly. "Humans have never faced a force like this." One officer asked, "Should we expect a fleet near their outer defenses?" Vyrek smiled. "If they are smart, they will surrender." The fleet moved forward. Thousands of ships entered the outer edge of the Sol system. Everything looked quiet. Too quiet. The alien sensors scanned the area. No human ships. No defense platforms. Nothing. Some officers laughed. "They ran," one commander said. "They must know the war is already lost," another added. But then something strange appeared on the sensors. Small metal objects floating in space. Thousands of them. No engines. No weapons. Just cold metal shapes drifting in silence. One officer frowned. "Debris?" Another scanned again. "No, they were placed here." Admiral Vyrek looked annoyed. "Primitive mines." The fleet continued forward. Human technology was known to be simple. Mines were not surprising. "Destroy them and continue," Vyrek ordered. The front ships fired plasma beams. The small objects exploded. But something unexpected happened. Instead of small explosions, the entire area of space suddenly turned into fire. Hundreds of hidden nuclear charges detonated at the same time. Blinding flashes filled the darkness. Shockwaves tore through the front lines of the alien fleet. Dozens of ships were instantly destroyed. But the alien shields absorbed most of the damage. Vyrek laughed. "Is that their best defense?" But the explosions were not meant to destroy the fleet. They were meant to blind it. For a few seconds, alien sensors stopped working. And that was when the human fleet appeared. From the darkness behind Saturn. From hidden positions near the asteroid belt. From silent stations hidden around Jupiter's moons. Human warships surged forward. Hundreds of gray metal ships accelerated toward the alien fleet. They did not glow like alien ships. They did not shine. They looked like cold pieces of steel. Then their railguns fired. Massive metal projectiles launched at impossible speeds. Alien shields were designed to stop plasma and energy weapons. But solid metal traveling at extreme velocity was different. The first alien cruiser was hit directly through its center. The projectile tore through its shield, through its hull, and exited the other side. The ship exploded seconds later. Then the second ship died. Then the third. Human missiles filled space like angry swarms. Some missiles carried nuclear warheads. Others split into dozens of smaller weapons. Alien commanders suddenly realized something terrible. The humans were not fighting like normal galactic fleets. They were fighting like predators. Human ships moved fast and unpredictably. They fired, then vanished behind asteroids. They attacked from blind spots. They targeted engines and command ships first. Within minutes, chaos spread across the alien fleet. Admiral Vyrek stared in disbelief as ships around him exploded. "How are their weapons penetrating our shields?" an officer shouted. No one had an answer. Another officer yelled, "Human vessels approaching from multiple vectors." Vyrek clenched his fists. "Return fire." Plasma cannons lit up the darkness. Several human ships were destroyed. But the humans did not retreat. More ships appeared. Hidden fleets the galaxy never knew existed. The battle turned into a nightmare. Within 1 hour, half of the first suppression fleet was gone. Ships burned across space. Broken hulls drifted through the battlefield. And the surviving alien commanders began to understand something horrifying. Humanity had been preparing for this war for a long time. And this was only the beginning. Across the galaxy, military leaders watched the battle through emergency transmissions. What they saw made many of them uncomfortable. The first suppression fleet had been one of the largest forces ever assembled. Thousands of ships from the most powerful civilizations had entered the Sol system with confidence. Now half of them were gone. Burning wreckage floated across space near Jupiter and the asteroid belt. Signals from destroyed ships slowly faded into silence. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, the mood had completely changed. There was no laughter now. The giant hologram of the battlefield showed red warning signals everywhere. Human ships were still moving. Still attacking. Still hunting. Admiral Vyrek's flagship barely survived the first hour of the battle. The enormous vessel had lost 2 escort cruisers and most of its fighter squadrons. On the bridge, alarms screamed constantly. Enemy railgun strike detected. Missile swarm approaching. Shield integrity dropping. Vyrek gripped the command rail tightly. He had fought wars for centuries. He had defeated powerful enemies before. But he had never seen weapons like this. Another alien officer shouted, "New human fleet emerging near Saturn." Vyrek turned toward the hologram. More human ships were arriving. Long gray warships moved out from behind Saturn's rings like silent predators. They looked simple. No glowing engines. No elegant curves. Just heavy armor and large weapon mounts. But something strange appeared on the sensors. One officer stared at his screen in confusion. "Sir, we are detecting extremely large energy signatures." Vyrek frowned. "What kind of weapon produces that much energy?" No one answered. Then one of the human ships changed position. The front of the vessel opened slowly, revealing a massive cylindrical structure hidden inside the hull. The alien sensors tried to identify it. But there was no match in any galactic database. The weapon fired. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to bend. A blinding white beam tore across the battlefield. It moved faster than anything the alien ships could track. The beam struck an alien battleship nearly 20 kilometers long. The result shocked everyone watching. The ship did not explode. It simply disappeared. The beam tore through its shields, through its armor, and cut the entire vessel into two glowing halves. The pieces drifted apart, burning from the inside. The alien crew never had time to react. Silence filled Admiral Virek's bridge. "What was that?" one officer whispered. Another officer checked the sensor logs again and again. "Unknown weapon," he said slowly. "Possibly a directed energy cannon, but far stronger than anything we have seen." Before they could recover, the human ships fired again. More beams crossed the battlefield. Another cruiser was sliced apart. A carrier vanished in a flash of light. Then the missiles arrived. But these were not normal missiles. Human missiles suddenly split into dozens of smaller warheads while traveling through space. Alien point defense systems tried to shoot them down. But there were too many. Explosions filled the battlefield. Some missiles carried nuclear weapons. Others created powerful electromagnetic pulses that shut down entire ships. Shields failed. Engines died. Command systems went dark. For the first time in galactic history, many alien commanders realized something terrifying. Human weapons were not advanced because they followed galactic technology. They were advanced because they followed human logic. Simple. Brutal. Effective. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, panic began spreading. One ambassador shouted, "Why were we not informed about these weapons?" Another screamed, "How many fleets do the humans have?" Commander Ralthor stood quietly, watching the battle. He had tried to warn them. No one listened. On the battlefield, Admiral Virek finally spoke. His voice sounded very different now. "We underestimated them." Human ships continued moving across the battlefield like hunters. They targeted command vessels. They targeted carriers. They destroyed ships that tried to retreat. Within another hour, the remaining alien fleet began to break apart. Ships turned away from the Sol system. They tried to escape. But many never made it. Human railguns continued firing. Missiles chased fleeing ships. By the end of the battle, only a small part of the first suppression fleet escaped. The rest were destroyed. Back on Earth, Admiral Hayes stood calmly in the command center. An officer approached him. "Sir, enemy fleet retreat confirmed." Hayes nodded slowly. He looked at the map of the galaxy. This battle had only been the opening move. And soon, human fleets would begin moving outward. The galaxy had started the war. Now humanity was going to finish it. 3 days after the destruction of the first suppression fleet, the galaxy was still in shock. No one had expected humanity to win the first battle. Even fewer expected the victory to be so complete. Across dozens of star systems, news spread quickly. Military channels replayed the same battle recordings again and again. Alien commanders watched human railguns tear through ships that were supposed to be invincible. The fear was growing. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, the leaders argued loudly. One ambassador shouted, "The humans used illegal weapons." Another responded, "Those weapons are not illegal. They are simply different." A third voice demanded, "Send a second fleet immediately. We must crush them before they expand the war." But Commander Ralthor spoke calmly. "You are already too late." The chamber fell silent. "What do you mean?" the Supreme Speaker asked. Ralthor pointed toward the hologram map of the galaxy. "They will not wait for our next attack." The map suddenly changed. Red signals appeared across several border systems. Emergency alarms began echoing through the chamber. One officer shouted from the control station, unknown fleets detected entering Karth Dominion territory. Another voice followed seconds later. Multiple human fleets detected near HFY space. The room filled with confusion. How did they travel that far so quickly? Then the truth appeared on the screen. Human fleets were not only defending the Sol system. They were already deep inside enemy territory. On the bridge of the Terran flagship Resolute, Admiral Daniel Hayes stood calmly as dozens of human warships moved through hyperspace. Their destination was the Karth Dominion's most important shipyard. It was the same empire that had pushed hardest for the war against humanity. A young officer spoke carefully. "Sir, we will arrive in the system in 30 seconds. Hayes nodded. "Target only military infrastructure." "Yes, sir. Civilian stations are not to be touched." Human fleets followed strict rules. They fought hard. But they fought with purpose. Moments later, the fleet exited hyperspace. The massive Karth shipyard appeared in front of them. Thousands of construction platforms surrounded a giant orbital station where warships were built. But the aliens were not ready. Most of their fleets had been sent toward Earth. Their home systems were nearly defenseless. Alarms exploded across the Karth shipyard. Unknown fleet detected. Human vessels confirmed. Before the defenders could react, human ships fired. Railguns thundered across space. Missiles streaked toward the shipyard. Explosions erupted across the construction platforms. Half-built warships were torn apart before they could even launch. The main station tried to activate its shields. But human electronic warfare systems had already begun their work. Signals jammed communication networks. Defense systems shut down. Within minutes, the largest shipyard in the Karth Dominion was burning. Admiral Hayes watched the destruction quietly. "Weapons control," he said calmly. "Disable their military command station." A powerful energy beam fired from the Resolute. The beam struck the center of the orbital command tower. The structure collapsed instantly. Without command control, the remaining defenses went silent. The attack had taken less than 20 minutes. The human fleet turned away. They did not stay. They did not celebrate. They simply moved to the next target. Across the galaxy, the same scene repeated again and again. Human fleets struck military bases. Weapon factories. Fleet headquarters. Every empire that had voted for war was suddenly under attack. And the speed of the attacks terrified everyone. Human ships moved like ghosts. They appeared suddenly. They destroyed their targets. Then they vanished into hyperspace before large defense fleets could arrive. Within days, dozens of military systems had been crippled. The galaxy was no longer attacking humanity. Now the galaxy was trying to survive humanity. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, silence filled the room. The war they believed would be easy had turned into a disaster. The humans were not fighting for territory. They were sending a message. A very clear message. If the galaxy wanted war, humanity would bring it straight to their doorsteps. Only 2 weeks after the war had begun, the balance of power in the galaxy had completely changed. No one had imagined a young species like humanity could fight this way. But now entire star systems were in chaos. Military shipyards burned across multiple empires. Fleet headquarters had been destroyed. Supply routes had collapsed. The great powers of the galaxy were no longer preparing for victory. They were struggling to survive. Human fleets had not slowed down. Every day, new attacks were reported. A weapons factory in HFY space vanished after a sudden missile strike. A Karth Dominion battle group was destroyed while trying to regroup near their capital. Even the powerful Velan Republic lost 2 major defense stations in a single night. Human ships seemed to appear everywhere. Fast. Silent. Unpredictable. And the most terrifying part was that the humans did not attack civilian worlds. They only targeted military systems, shipyards, weapon depots, fleet command centers. It was clear what humanity was doing. They were dismantling the galaxy's ability to continue the war. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, the mood was completely different from the day the war began. The once proud ambassadors now looked exhausted. Many of them had received emergency reports from their home systems. Admiral Vyrek stood in the center of the chamber again. But the confident commander from 2 weeks ago was gone. His fleet had been destroyed. His empire had lost its largest shipyard. And human fleets were now dangerously close to Karth Dominion space. The Supreme Speaker finally broke the silence. How many fleets remain combat-ready? A military officer answered slowly. Less than 40% of our original forces. The chamber fell silent. Another officer added, human fleets continue expanding their operations. At the current rate, our major military infrastructure will collapse within a month. Someone whispered in disbelief. This is impossible. But Commander Ralthor stood quietly near the back of the chamber. He had warned them. Now everyone understood. Humanity had not been weak. Humanity had been patient. For 30 years they had studied the galaxy. They had watched alien tactics. They had learned their technology. And while the galaxy believed humans were primitive, human engineers had quietly built weapons designed to defeat them. The Supreme Speaker finally spoke again. What do the humans want? No one answered at first. Then a new signal appeared on the Council communication network. The chamber lights dimmed slightly as a transmission connected. A human face appeared on the giant holographic screen. Admiral Daniel Hayes. He stood calmly in a dark command room. Behind him, stars moved slowly outside the windows of his flagship. The entire council watched in silence. The Supreme Speaker spoke carefully. Admiral Hayes, humanity is responsible for severe destruction across multiple empires. Hayes nodded slightly. Yes. You have crippled half the galaxy's military power. Yes. The speaker hesitated before asking the next question. What are your demands? Hayes remained silent for a moment. Then he spoke calmly. Humanity did not start this war. No one in the chamber argued. You declared war on us. Several ambassadors lowered their heads. You believed we were weak. More silence. Hayes continued. But humanity does not want to conquer the galaxy. That surprised many of them. We only want one thing. The room waited. Peace. The Supreme Speaker leaned forward. And if we refuse? Hayes looked directly into the camera. Then human fleets will continue. No anger. No threats. Just a simple fact. The council members exchanged nervous looks. Everyone in the room understood the situation. They could continue the war. And risk losing everything. Or they could accept the truth. Humanity had already won. Finally, the Supreme Speaker spoke. The Galactic Council requests an immediate ceasefire. For the first time since the war began, Admiral Hayes allowed a small smile. Ceasefire accepted. Across the galaxy, human fleets slowly stopped their attacks. The war that was supposed to last months had ended in just 14 days. But the lesson would never be forgotten. From that day forward, every civilization in the galaxy remembered one simple truth. Humanity was peaceful. Humanity was reasonable. But if the galaxy ever declared war on them again, it would be the biggest mistake in history.